put us in a box. Go ahead. That just gives us something to break out of. Because the next generation 2025 GMC Terrain Elevation is raising the standard of what comes standard. As far as expectations go, why meet them when you can shatter them? What we choose to challenge, we challenge completely. We are professional grade. Visit gmc.com to learn more.
Summer's here, and Nordstrom has everything you need for your best dress season ever. From beach days and weddings to weekend getaways and your everyday wardrobe. Discover stylish options under $100 from tons of your favorite brands like Mango, Skims, Princess Polly, and Madewell. It's easy too with free shipping and free returns, in-store order pickup, and more. Shop today in stores, online at Nordstrom.com, or download the Nordstrom app.
Unfiltered discussions, unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello and welcome in, listener. And yes, that's singular, intended. I'm talking to you, Lisa, a fan who never misses the show, and frankly, we're concerned. Quick update from my small cat Tomato, he's fine. On tonight's program, we'll launch off of the surface of Earth, out of the stratosphere, out of the solar system, 124 light years away, to a neighboring planet whose atmosphere may just have signs for life. At least, that's what the media's been reporting. I've even reported on it once or twice. But is it time to crack out the champagne? Are there aliens out there? Or should we be a little skeptical of this finding? We'll dig in. That'll be halfway through the hour. After that, we'll go to one of the few countries where clinical trials with psilocybin or magic mushrooms are underway to treat depression. New research says it's a promising treatment and can increase your empathy. But is all empathy created equal? Is more empathy always better? And how on earth does a fungus actually do that? I love doing fungus coverage. It's my favorite part of doing this job. Questions around magic mushrooms to treat depression answered later in the hour. That is merely some of the show. We got lots more strange stuff planned for you, so let's dig in.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Most shows deliver serious news that you can use. As a point of differentiation, we give you news you can't use. The Last Show with David Cooper and special foreign correspondent, Tony Five.
Oh, yeah.
And in ridiculous stories of birds attacking people in England news, we are joined by Tony Five.
David, unbelievably, this is the third bird-related attack news story that's happened consecutively in the third week. This is incredible, David.
If you want to succeed in something, you have to specialize. You can't just be a scientist. You got to be like a neurosurgeon if you want to make the big bucks. If we want to make the big bucks, we can't just cover any old news story. We got to specialize.
David, it feels like we've been backed into a corner and made... I mean, if people are thinking a bird attacking somebody in the UK or Europe, they're going to think The Last Show, David Cooper, right?
And Tony Five.
Well, I don't really want to be associated with it, in all fairness. I've got a job outside of this. My name's not even Tony or Five. I'm fine.
All right. Ooh, I gave away his real name. Oh.
Easy!
Tony, question for you.
Yes, hit me.
What happened in East London?
This is from London, David. East London, my friend. And it's 3rd of June. So we're like, what? It's today. It's amazing. It is live. We're on the beating heart of bird-related attacks. A buzzard, which is the largest bird of prey in the UK. So you guys have got the American eagle, the falcon. We have something called the buzzard, which is, big talons, big old beak. And it's attacking primary children in East London.
How old are primary children, I ask Tony 5 as he reports live from the scene of the attack in his apartment.
So primary children are children that leave the nursery, so there may be 3 or 4, and they go up to before they go to like middle school, so that's like 11, 12.
Okay. I think we call primary school first grade through to 6 or something.
Elementary?
Yeah, we call it elementary school. Yeah.
Elementary school. So basically it's elementary, my dear David.
Young kids, toddlers, a little bigger than toddlers.
Yeah, but smaller than like Labradors. They're started that sort of size.
What kind of attacks are we talking here? Is this a deadly attack or are they just a couple scratches on the old head?
Okay, so seriously, no one's been killed yet. No one's been attacked. They're scared. And because of this, these poor children are not allowed out at playtimes. So this buzzard is circling this school. These children go out and they have their sandwiches and they're playing high five and kiss chase. And they can't do it because this buzzard is coming down and taking these kids out.
Oh my God. In this article I'm reading, this woman has the most British teeth I've ever seen in my life.
Oh yeah, it's very bad. Yeah, we won't mention her name. I've seen that as well. We won't talk about that. But if, dear listener, if you want to see it, if you just look on the BBC website, you will see it.
I feel bad.
It is headline news. It's just after the drone attacks and what's happening in America and what's happening all over the world, World War III. And it's a second news story about the buzzards attacking.
Yeah. You know what? I think eventually they're going to quote us in these articles. Bird attack specialists Tony 5 and David Cooper declined to comment. I hope we'll be at the end of every article like this. Now, are the birds protected so you can't even kill them if you wanted?
I don't think so. I think most birds you can't kill, if they're in the air, it's illegal to kill. Apart from pigeons, they're like the rats of the sky. And I think you need a special license. But the school is taking it upon themselves to educate the children about birds of prey so that they're not so scared. So they've had a bird handler come in and look after them and show them what these birds are like. But they're still scared about going out. I would be.
The council said as the buzzards are protected under UK law, intervention options are very limited. See, I was right, Tony. I read through this article.
I didn't read through this article. I looked at the pictures. The woman scared me. I carried on.
It's funny. They're telling the kids they got to go inside.
Yeah.
I feel like they're going to be trapped inside. Is this going to be the new state of the British education system?
Well, I think so, David. We're going, we've got English, we've got maths, we've got maybe a language, and it's going to be the fear of birds as another sort of classroom option.
We got to get someone on this story into the show. Maybe this lovely woman who I criticized and now I feel bad.
You guys over there, you have
I know, much more serious problems.
But we have bird attacks. It really does just go to kind of how English we are. We don't have guns on the street. We have large birds of prey. Yeah,
I don't know what to say other than I wish there was just bird attacks here where I live.
Me too. Wouldn't that be a better world if everybody just worried about the attack of a bird?
It would be such a good world if we could all just go into public and our only fear that day was getting mauled by a falcon or a buzzard.
David, I think maybe we should go, is it presidential? When can the next president come around?
3 years or 3.5 years. But question for you.
Yes.
In those movies when aliens attack the Earth, they always depict all of humanity getting along?
Yes.
What if we could breed, vultures, falcons, buzzards, hawks to attack all of humanity equally? It'll be a crisis. And then the UN and whatever, you'll see all these world leaders putting aside their differences to fight against bird attacks, and everyone will be happy and in love.
David, I think that's what Stevie Wonder and Paul McCartney sang about in the 50s. They're living in harmony, my friend, living in harmony. John Lennon, he believed that as well, David. They all ahead of their time, my friend. It was all about being in harmony with the birds.
The original lyrics to the song Imagine were, imagine birds attacked humanity a lot and then everybody got along in fighting the birds. But then you know what these record labels do? They distort things.
Yeah.
They try to make the album too commercial. They make you rewrite your lyrics before they'll release your record. And then we ended up with the cruddy version of Imagine that we have now.
Yeah, see, I like stuff that rhymes. And they probably felt the way I do. Whereas you're more sort of eclectic. You don't mind stuff that doesn't rhyme, isn't it? You love it.
You don't like music that doesn't rhyme?
No, it's not music. If it doesn't rhyme, it ain't music.
That's a hot take, Tony.
I'm on the dime. I've got lots of time. If it doesn't rhyme, what's the point?
I feel like you're not a person who's deeply moved by music.
No, I hate it when people say, "Oh my God, I've heard this track and it's just it really touches me." No, people touch you. A music song doesn't. And I like being touched by people, not music.
Surely there must be some medium that you're moved by. Television, movies, visual art.
Pornhub. Apart from that, what are you expecting? Why do you always think I'm deeper than I actually am? My depth is in millimeters.
Oh man, this truly is the last show. When we come back with Tony 5, he's going to tell us the tale that happened to him today. It involves going to the emergency room and potentially seeing a plastics specialist. I have no idea what that is.
David, after the break, my friend, listen, I might not have been here, David. Stay tuned.
All right, Tony's going to disclose a harrowing tale that happened to him on his chin because he likes a whim.
Harrington, I don't do heroin.
Good rhyming. We'll be back.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Knowing you could be saving money for the things you really want is a great feeling. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can choose to bundle and save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
It never gets old. It's such a good song, Tony 5, foreign correspondent in London, England. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show. What a great tune you've got.
Just like me, David, never gets old. Black don't crack, baby.
But the music's not a particular color, is it?
Well, really, David? Do you have to out my music? It's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it is good.
How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm underslept, but good, which is a weird combination.
David, I need to bring the show down, David. I know many listeners care for my welfare, but I have just returned from the ER, David.
What happened in the ER?
David, the injury, I want everybody to relax. I'm fine, okay? Just to let you know, right from the top, I'm fine. I'll live. It was quite traumatic, David. The nurses and the doctors have never seen anything like it before, in all fairness. I'm a medical anomaly, David.
What? Is this a mental health thing, a physical health thing? What happened?
David, I went to my loft, which would be your attic or top room. Basically, you have a little ladder.
Cellar would be another. Yeah.
No, cellar's the under one. Cellar's the ground floor, right?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I'm in the, what do you call it? Loft?
Here, a loft is like a fancy apartment in an industrial building that was converted to a apartment.
Like
loft.
where you live.
Yeah, well, yeah, in most of New York, actually, yes.
A loft or an attic is in a house, and it's basically the roof element where you store your MP3 players, your record decks, your vinyls, your dead bodies, parents, and, stuff that you think you're going to use in later life that you never will.
Like the dead bodies. So you went up there, a ghost appeared, you went to the hospital for an exorcist. Did I get it right?
Very slow. And I don't need to see a ghost to exorcist. I go to the gym every day, David. It's fine. So what I'm saying is I was up there. You get a little mobile ladder to go up there, right?
I don't know. Some people have like a thing that pulls down and the ladder's built in. Some people have actual steps.
Yeah, that's what I've got. I haven't spared any expense with that. I have actually got that. And I was up there, and for those who don't know, David has kindly bought me a laptop. It's wonderful. And I went up there to get like a little stand for this new laptop that I'm going to get, so I've got a proper setup. So I thought, okay, I'll go up there. I'll make it be really nice. It will look really great. And as I was coming down, I missed a step. And I cut my thumb on the sharp side of the ladder.
Oy.
On both sides. And then it cut it. And I thought it had broken it. So I'm there swearing. And weirdly, I swore at you. Because had it not been for you to buy me the laptop, I wouldn't have been up there. Which means I wouldn't have fallen and spent the best part of 4 hours in ER.
I'm sorry we got you a tool to do this show with, and we were nice to you. I apologize that we tried to help you out because you don't have a functioning laptop right now.
David, I do have a functioning laptop, but my MacBook is a 2015, which is absolutely fine, as I say. It means I have to come on this show about an hour earlier just to get in.
I thought it was like a 2011 or something.
Actually, it is 2011. You're right.
I was like, why are we replacing a 2015? I feel like you could still get a couple more years out of that.
I can't even update. I can't update to the latest. I can't even update anything. Actually, yeah, you're right. It is that. Yeah, 2011. Well done, David. How do you remember all that stuff?
Great content. We're really content is king on the show. Okay, so you come down the ladder, you cut yourself in two places. Is it like a murder scene? Is there blood everywhere?
There's blood all over my finger, but I don't feel pain, David. As you know, I've been on this show for a while. So I just didn't feel it. I was like, oh my God. Then I looked, it was like cut, it was deep. I couldn't see the bone or anything. And then I kind of what do I do now? So I put it under cold water, I taped it up, and but it was like throbbing, right? And I never really get anything throbbing in my hand. I was like, oh, this is weird.
It's the wrong place to have an appendage throb.
Right? So I went to my doctor's.
That was a good joke.
And I had the most overzealous nurse. You've got to go to the ER. Right, you've got to go now. And I was like, why? Because we just can't handle this here. You need to go and see us. I was like, really? She goes, yeah, we just can't handle this sort of injury here. And I'm like, well, I've put a plaster on it. What else do you want me to do? She goes, well, you've got to go. You've got to see the plastics. Now, plastics means plastic surgeon, right?
What?
Or plastics department. Yeah, because I've cut it so badly, it's like whipped up below the skin. So she goes, you've got to go and see, and it's like the joint, which means it's prone to infection, and you're diabetic, and your leg could fall off. I mean, it was a whole heap of things. It really escalated quite quickly.
Was it because the nurse just didn't know what they were talking about?
No, she's a nurse practitioner, so she's like one above like a regular nurse, so she's able to prescribe.
No, I understand, but so you were sent to the right place. Did you go to quote unquote plastics? Side note, that's a hilarious.
Yeah, I went to the ER. So I went to the GP, which is our general practice. You guys don't have GPs there, do you?
Where I live in the US, we usually call them PCPs, not to be confused with
PCP. No way. No wonder that country's got a problem.
Primary care physician. Yeah, it's the same thing. Every country has that, I think.
Yeah, like a walk-in clinic, like if you've got a cold or a flu.
Like a general practitioner. Yeah. We have that.
Yeah, GP, right? So I went there first, and then from there I went to the hospital, and from the hospital I went to this department. So this plastics department, I've got an appointment to see them in a couple of days. I will keep you updated, dear listener. I will let you know about my medical journey.
For now, it's just got like a steri strip on it. It's just you've got it taped up and that's it. No stitches, no nothing.
There it is. Look, I've shown you.
Yeah, but we're on the radio. People can't see it, Tony.
Yes, they can, David. This is technology. So basically, it's got a big old plaster. It's like it. So it's made my thumb maybe 4 times bigger thickness. It's about the thickness of a regular hot dog sausage at the Yankee Stadium.
All right, so it's just going to live in there until you can see a plastic surgeon to stitch it up and make it neat and tidy.
Yeah, well, it doesn't need stitching because it's just the skin's been ripped off. So I don't know what they mean by, but anything to meet people, David.
They're going to take some skin off your tush and put it on your thumb and you'll be thumb tush.
Now, that's what I thought straight away. Like, I need to get a skin graft something. Like, I've got a lot of spare skin around my so maybe they might do that. I might have a thumb.
You might just question for you, if they graft skin from your butt onto your hand, does that give you superpowers? Like, can you fart from your thumb?
Yeah, I'd be Buttfinger. Buttfinger man, he's the greatest guy in the world.
There's a reason this is called The Last Show.
Buttfinger man, it smells, it points, it does everything. It's Buttfinger man. Yeah.
This truly is the last show that we're ever going to be allowed to do.
That's great. I think maybe the anesthetic is wearing on me. I do feel a little bit sort of slurry. They did stick some anesthetic in me.
Through your thumb or in your mouth?
No, thumb.
I don't think it goes from your thumb to your brain, but...
Well, David, you haven't got that medical group on that I got last year.
Tony, we put out the phone number. Our phone line is always open at 1-888-505-6644. We take calls sometimes, but people do leave us voicemails. And here is one from a listener that is a fan of the show. Do you want me to play it?
David, as long as it's not a weirdo, that's all I care about.
All right. Let's hear what this caller had to say.
Yes, this is Jamie calling from Toronto. I really love the show.
Wow.
I've been listening to you guys for a couple months.
David sounds normal.
I really, love the show at night.
Kind of goes on a bunch,
It's nice.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. He just says he likes the show for a while.
And I love all the shows, but your show, I would have to say, is probably the best.
He said what?
Keep up the great work. You guys are amazing. I love listening to your shows, and I wanted to say that these shows are really get me off to a good night.
What?
They get me off to a
Oh,
good
boy.
night. They
Oh,
get me off to
boy,
a good
Jamie.
night. They
Hey,
get me off
is
to
he
a
listening
good
to our
night.
show?
They get me
Now,
off
do
to a good
restraining
night.
orders work
They,
internationally?
I love hearing every new topics you guys come up with, and I'm going to be listening to your show probably forever. So keep going at it. You're amazing, guys, and take care. Bye for now.
I'll be honest with you, I'm quite turned on by Jamie. Jamie, please call the show back, get us live, or send us another voicemail. I really like you. I would love to listen to your voice over and over again.
Aw, what a nice fan of the show.
I like him.
The show gets him off to a good night.
I mean, that's our demographic, right? Like slightly unhinged, medicated.
Slightly unhinged, a little bit sleepy. We're keeping people late at night company. I mean, Jamie's our ideal listener, really.
He's our quintessential ideal listener, David, and long may he live on the medication.
And long may you live on the medication, Tony. And long may I live on the medication as well. Tony, thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure as always, my friend.
Tony 5, foreign correspondent. He joins us from London, England. Up next, does life exist on a distant planet? There appears to be good evidence, but how good is it really?
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Comcast is committed to bringing access to the internet to all Americans, including rural communities across the country, like Sussex County, Delaware.
We were being left behind. Everybody around us seemed to have internet, but we did not. High-speed internet is one of those good things that we needed to help us move our farming, our small businesses, our recreation forward.
Learn more about how we're bringing our next-generation network to more people across the country at comcastcorporation.com/investment in America.
Keep listening to The Last Show with David Cooper, because the alien invasion can wait. The Last Show with David Cooper.
K2-18b, the hottest planet to talk about right now in the search for aliens. But is there life on it? Life some 124 light years away, or is it all just a big misunderstanding? Some scientists say they've sniffed out a molecule tied to living things. Others say, not so fast. It's noisy data. It's not a smoking gun, and the excitement is all premature. I'm here to discuss this with someone who studied K2-18b. His name is Dr. Rafael Luque. He's an astrophysicist at the University of Chicago. Rafael, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for the invitation, David.
I remember when I first read about K2-18b, everyone was excited. People in the news were saying, crack out the champagne, there be aliens. Why? Why was everyone so excited in the first place?
Well, it is an exciting planet on the first place. Even though it is one of the hottest topics right now, it is one of the coldest planets that we know. It is so cold that may eventually have liquid water. It could have a liquid water ocean under its atmosphere. This is a type of planet that we don't have in the solar system, called subneptunes, but they are the most common in the galaxy. So if you eventually, for the first subneptune that is cold enough, you look at it and there are some hints for life, and this is the most common type of planet in the universe that we know so far, that's really exciting news for the search for life outside the solar system.
It certainly is. If I went there, my mother would say, make sure you bring your jacket. She'd be very upset if I got cold. Now, what we've detected, though, it's a molecule. And some say, well, this means life is there. Only life could have created the molecule. Others say, oh, the actual data doesn't support like 100% that the molecule's there in the first place. And even if it is it a sign of life? So let's talk about this molecule, dimethyl sulfide. Why would it tell us that life is on a planet?
Because on Earth, it is only due to life. On Earth, dimethyl sulfide is actually the molecule that gives the smell of the ocean that we recognize. It is produced by plankton on the ocean. And on Earth, on the amounts that we detected and we have it in our atmosphere, it can only be due to marine life. So that is the reason why it would be so exciting to detect it confidently in an exoplanet and robustly and in a large abundance, because even though we have seen that dimethyl sulfide could be in asteroids or comets or produced abiotically in that such big amount that is supposed to be detected in this exoplanet, it is very likely that it is due to life.
But isn't that no offense, and I'm just an idiot with a microphone, isn't that a bit of a logical fallacy, saying we only can think of one way it happened, therefore it must be this way? Couldn't there be this other possibility of, there's some unknown natural non-life process that creates this thing?
Yeah, certainly. And the search or the field of astrobiology and biosignatures, all those type of things, is really in its infancy. Right now, all the chemistry and all the things that we try to learn about are based on water, but there may be a biotic process that are in different environments than water. That could be on methane or other reactions. So it is really what we are looking for now. Everything is very based on Earth. It is very, very Earth-centric. So right now, all the conclusions that we do are really, really strong extrapolations from what we know on Earth. But, what we typically say is that the universe has a much greater imagination than we do. So if there are ways to make different possibilities of life based on different things, the universe always finds a way.
Let's talk about the signal here, because we're not actually getting an image of this planet. When the planet passes, correct me if I'm wrong here, when the planet passes in front of its star, the light from the star passes through the planet's atmosphere, and then we look at that light, and if we kind of put it into a prism, like on the cover of that Pink Floyd album, we can see certain chemical signatures, and just like that, we see the chemical signature of dimethyl sulfide. Even if this is the chemical of life, is the signal clear or is it rather noisy? For example, I have bad Wi-Fi in my apartment. Try streaming an episode of Golden Girls with bad Wi-Fi. I can't do it. Is the signal like that, kind of noisy? We can't even be sure it's 100% accurate.
There was a first claim on this detection 2 years ago in which there were like tentative signs. It was clearly not a strong detection, very faint signal. That was put forward. I think it was a little bit highlighted too much by the media by the amount of like the significance of the signal, but it was there. But this report in April had kind of surpassed this threshold for which they found it now to be significant. However, they didn't use the data that they used in 23, right? 2 years ago, they used a new set of data, and they argued that this was an independent line of evidence. What we find is when you put all the data together, the things do not match. The signal and the amount of that signal they find in the data from a few months ago doesn't correspond to the same amount of that molecule in the data that they were presented in 23. So when you analyze everything at the same time, all the data together that is publicly available, the significance of the signal goes completely down. It is compatible with not being there. So that's why we say that the data that was presented 2 months ago is too much noisy really to be a line of independent evidence supporting the detection.
So where do you stand on all this? So the signal's weak, there could be other processes. Like, is this the smoking gun for plankton-like life on this planet, or do we need to keep doing research and maybe looking elsewhere?
There are a lot of things that we need to learn first from this planet. The main detection that we get, the main composition of the atmosphere is methane. There is a lot of methane in this atmosphere, and there is a lot of CO2. There is a lot of carbon dioxide. Methane, when it is broken down by a particle of light coming from the star, normally breaks down into other molecules. And one of the molecules that it breaks down into, it is ethane. Ethane, it is CH3, and that is the same than dimethyl sulfide, taking the sulfur out. So what we see is when we look at these atmospheres, when we look through the light passes through the atmosphere of a planet, we are detecting these wiggles and bumps at different wavelengths in this prism. These are created by the molecular structure. How is the molecular structure of a molecule give us different wiggles and signs at different wavelengths? But for all the molecules that have CH, which makes organic matter, right? Any hydrocarbon, almost, there are millions of those compounds. They have different wiggles at the same places. And one of the wiggles that they have is at 3 micron and at 7 micron, which are covered by the James Webb Space Telescope. What we are saying is that dimethyl sulfide is almost impossible to distinguish from a much more normal molecule, which would be ethane, to be in this planet atmosphere. Ethane, we have it in Jupiter, in Saturn, in Uranus and Neptune, and we know there is no life in those planets. It is just a consequence, a natural consequence, a natural molecule to be there when you have an atmosphere that is very rich in methane.
So what I'm hearing is the message for the parade is that rain is scheduled. This is not life. We are not, 124 light year neighbors to green aliens with technology. It's not time to crack out the champagne.
It is certainly not time to crack the champagne. It has been slightly premature how it is put forward on the media as the strongest. It is certainly a sign or a tentative evidence, but there is certainly not conclusive evidence how it was put forward a few months ago, reassuring that this detection was real, when we can certainly just take in the same data that these researchers presented, exactly their same data, put it all together, analyze it. We don't find any evidence for this dimethyl sulfide. And we find that ethane may be a much more likely explanation.
If we did find a molecule that really only came from life on a distant planet, would a rock-solid detection like this be enough for you to believe that life is out there?
Oh, certainly. That's the holy grail of our field. That's what got me into studying exoplanets, and that's what we want to keep putting forward and pushing forward in the next years.
Dr. Rafael Luque is an astrophysicist at the University of Chicago. Rafael, thanks for the chat. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
After the break, we'll take a look at the results of treating depression with magic mushrooms in one of the few places where clinical trials are legal. Does it work? Can a dose of a strange fungus make us a little bit more empathetic? Questions answered in a few moments.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
When your therapist won't take your calls anymore, there's always the last show with David Cooper.
Could taking psilocybin or magic mushrooms make you feel other people's emotions more intuitively, more deeply? Could it help lift you out of depression? Well, new research points to yes, but is all empathy created equal? Is more empathy always better? And how does a fungus do all that? We're here with Dr. Johannes Jungwirth, who's from the Psychiatric University Clinic in Zurich, Switzerland. Johannes, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Nice to be here.
It's always interesting, clinical trials taking psilocybin, any kind of psychedelic or psychoactive drugs. What are you looking for when you're doing this research in terms of empathy? How do you even categorize that when studying people?
Well, that's a good question because there's no strict definition of empathy, but in research there has been, let's say, a small tradition about over the last years where we split up the empathy in basically two parts. Actually, one part is the emotional part, the emotional empathy, and one part is the cognitive empathy. And by cognitive empathy, we mean if we see another person with feelings that we can understand, meaning label those feelings. Somebody's sad, and we say, this person is sad. It's also very connected with the theory of mind, like seeing the mental state of a person and being able to put yourself into this feeling and name it. Yeah, and that's called cognitive empathy also. And the emotional empathy is what we call seeing somebody with an emotion and then having an own emotional response to that emotion. seeing somebody who's happy and be happy about that, or seeing somebody who's sad and then also worry about that person or feeling sad for that person.
So emotional empathy is more like reflecting that other's emotion back and understanding it kind of intuitively, whereas cognitive is more like naming it, understanding it on a more rational level.
Exactly.
So when people take magic mushrooms, which one do they get more of? It's my understanding it's more one than the other.
Yeah, exactly. The cognitive empathy doesn't change at all. So people are not better in labeling others' emotions before, like after taking psilocybin than before it. But emotional empathy seems to be enhanced or increased after taking magic mushrooms, psilocybin in that case, than before. So that's a significant finding we got out of our study with patients suffering from depression. So that those findings don't necessarily apply for healthy people, because we did it only in a sample of depressed patients. But there was also all the research where this measurement, we call it like the empathy test, the multifaceted empathy test, was done during the acute substance administration of psilocybin, but also it has been done with MDMA and LSD in Basel, and also there we could see an increase of just the emotional empathy, not the cognitive one.
How might that increase of emotional empathy while taking these substances help someone who is depressed? Isn't too much empathy sometimes part of the problem?
Yeah, well, I sometimes hear that people saying, or patients saying, I have too much empathy, and yeah, I think that sometimes that's true, but sometimes it also means, that I'm very, vulnerable to emotions in general, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I understand better the emotions of the others. And research shows that a lot of psychiatric disorders go hand in hand with a decrease of empathy. Yeah, so it's not 100% done yet, the research. There's also contradictory results, but the basic understanding is, for example, with depressed patients, they tend to have lower empathy in comparison to healthy people. But it's also seen in patients with cocaine addiction. It's seen in patients with psychopathy, borderline disorder, also PTSD. And it's in a wide variety of disorders. It's decreased, actually.
So putting that aside, this idea of too much empathy, how might enhancing emotional empathy help someone who's depressed? How might psilocybin help them?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and we thought about it also, and we also correlated the antidepressant effect with the increase of the empathy, and there was no correlation. So I'm not sure how it exactly is connected, but in theory, I think that empathy can really help. Like increased empathy can really help having positive experience in the daily life, and in daily life you need empathy in order to be able to connect with friends, but also be able to function in daily business, and also empathy is a big resource which people need, and that's one point. And the other point is, I think that increased empathy can help in psychotherapy, either, being more aware of the feelings of others can also maybe facilitate feeling your own emotions more. And also maybe there's an increased connection, or like a increased connection with the therapist, which might enhance psychotherapy. And also in group settings, a lot of patients I have, they go into group sessions, increased empathy can enhance the group cohesion and collection of emotions together. And I think in the future, psilocybin would be mainly applied in group settings. So this is an important finding also, how to design future psilocybin treatments.
What would therapy look like with psilocybin is what you're saying.
Exactly.
What was it like watching these participants go through this, psychedelic experience and being depressed, taking psilocybin? Was it interesting to observe them during the trials?
Yeah, of course. It's very interesting. I'm doing this since 6 years now, and also since 3 years we do clinical treatment with outside of clinical trials. It's legally possible in Switzerland. One of the only, together with Canada and Australia, it's the only country where you can do it with special improvements of the health ministry. So I'm doing it since a while, and watching them while they're taking the substance is interesting. Sometimes there's a lot of emotions, like crying for hours or laughing for hours. But the majority of the time, not much happens, actually. But what's really fascinating and also rewarding is the first integration session, how we call it, is when they talk about what they experienced during that trip, actually. So this is really fascinating, and that's also where the main therapeutic process is happening. In interaction, of course, the main thing is happening in the trip, but as a therapist, it gets exciting afterwards.
Well, thanks for sharing some of your research, some of these findings with me. I appreciate your time, Johannes.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Dr. Johannes Jungwirth is from the Psychiatric University Clinic in Zurich, Switzerland. After the break, our weekly deep dive into all things conspiracy theories and analyzing them. This week, we'll talk about how government and politicians can steal your data and how they have done so over the last 15, 20 years. Think WikiLeaks, think Cambridge Analytica. We'll break it down, answer your questions, and figure out how much privacy do you really have online.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Craftsman Days are here at Lowe's with big savings on the tools you need. Save $100 on the Craftsman V26 Tool Power Tool Combo Kit, now at $199. No matter what the project is, Craftsman's high-quality, high-performance products empower you to build on. Stop by your nearest Lowe's store and check out the full line of Craftsman tools today. Valid through 6/18 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
The only talk show with an introduction that mentions its own introduction. And that's happening right now in this introduction. The last show with David Cooper.
Begging for a mention. Yeah, you just want attention.
They say if you're doing nothing wrong, you've got nothing to hide. But what if people from the government are watching what you do right now? Today, we'll dive into the world of shadowy agencies, political power plays, and the data trail you didn't know you left behind, as we discuss how governments and politicians can steal your data. It is Conspiracy Corner here with Dr. Lee Kuhnle, a political science professor at Humber Polytechnic, who co-hosts the Uncover Up podcast. Lee, welcome to the show.
Thanks, David. It's always a pleasure to be here.
You say that, but at the commercial break, you said that being on the show stresses you out, and that made me a little sad, Lee.
Only because I respect you and I respect the show and I respect your audience. So I get stressed out that I can't bring all of the proof that I would normally bring to a classroom or to a paper or to a podcast where I sit in front of like reams of stuff. And if anyone wants to call me out on it, I'm like, well, look here. It's right in this document that I'm citing. But in your show, I can't do that. So I feel like your audience needs to take me on trust and on faith, and they don't know me. So I get worried. I get nervous.
But some of them know me, which means you've lost all credibility by association. So what's the worry?
All right, cool.
I think this all snapped into color. You know, it was like a blurry black and white image for people. And then boom, it was in 4K when 10 or 15 years ago, when Edward Snowden leaked the NSA document saying that the government was spying on pretty much everyone. And he went into exile, and yeah, he was sort of like the whistleblower for me that really, really focused this and really made me aware of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, some of the examples I'm going to be bringing up later are based directly on the Edward Snowden document leaks, which were then put together by the British NSA called GCHQ. They kind of created a bunch of reports about this. And then the New York Times, The Guardian, ProPublica, other organizations were taking a look at it and kind of wrote some articles for the rest of us being like, this is really happening. Like they are actually totally involved in hacking and stealing data.
To what end? Like just to have a file on every citizen of every country just to assess them for all kinds of things, what their political beliefs might be. I mean, ostensibly, if we trust the government, it's to kind of prevent, I don't know, terrorism.
Well, that's certainly what the NSA said. They were like, look, we're not doing this to mess with law-abiding American citizens. What we are doing is we're looking for terror threats. And of course, as you say, if these organizations are well managed and within their mandate, you know, I could make a reasonable case for wanting to have a security apparatus that is taking a look at domestic and foreign threats. But of course, we don't necessarily have all the oversight that we want. We know that historically, some of these organizations, and I'm looking at you, CIA, have certainly kind of gone beyond what we expected that they were doing. This was in the 1970s. We really found out the kind of shenanigans that were happening. And so, you know, I'm sometimes worried about, well, can I trust these organizations with all the data in the world that they now have?
Like, did they hack into Gmail, or did Google open up the doors and then boom, they've got an insight to every person's email? I'm not saying that happened, but there are these like very easy avenues.
Yeah, exactly. So apparently they are using all kinds of tools, including things like Google Maps is being harvested, the data that you supply. But the thing is that a lot of this stuff we're giving away for free, right? I mean, we have all of those massive contracts that we click agree to, and who is actually taking the time to read these things? And if you found something in that contract that said, look, I mean, we're going to share your data with third-party organizations, which a huge amount of those contracts say, who are the third parties? What are they doing with my data? And can I opt out? Of course, the answer is no if you want to use this product. And so your data is out there and to some extent voluntarily given, but not always. I guess that the conspiracy here is we're not aware of who it is that we're giving our data to or what they're doing with it.
It's hard to know what's happening today in 2025, but I feel like there's always like a delayed, like we know what happened 10 years ago.
Exactly.
So let's go through some of these historical examples of apps we never suspected collaborating with government agencies.
Yeah, exactly. So the one that always gets my students when I tell them about it, and I hope it's not too much of a dated example. Of course, we're dealing with digital stuff, which has a very short shelf life. But Angry Birds, you know, this online game, right? Have you ever played it, David?
I have not. It's like the butt end of every joke. I think there was an Angry Birds movie. I mean, like
there was. Yeah,
this is not an unknown game. This is a very much played one.
It's not an. This is, in fact, when this article that I'm citing here from The Guardian was written in 2014, the Angry Birds app had been downloaded 1.7 billion times, and yeah, according to the documents leaked by Snowden, and then these reports, which the New York Times, The Guardian, and other organizations really went through, what it suggests is that US and British spy agencies were routinely trying to gain access to people's private data from from Angry Birds, as well as other applications. Angry Birds is kind of the most famous one. If you want to search this up, Angry Birds NSA, and there you go. And they were looking for all kinds of things like demographic data, where you live, political inclinations, shopping habits. Of course, within the context of always saying, well, we're only interested in national security stuff, but as I said earlier, your data is out there. It's all out there. There is probably, with people who know what they're doing, no piece of your private life that we wouldn't be able to discover.
Interesting. Yeah, it's funny. We do it in the spirit of preventing terrorism, and like you said earlier, a security apparatus that is really well managed. You could see why they would want this data. Side note, if you and other people who ever study and analyze conspiracy theories form a band, you should call the band the security apparatus. I love that phrase.
That's brilliant. I love that. But coming up with band names, I think, is way more fun than actually learning an instrument and playing the same song over and over again. No?
Yeah. It's like what I always say, domain name first, business plan second. You want to get the good name and then fill it all, go work backwards from there. You can see why they would want to do that. How does that happen? I install Angry Birds. There's a little bit of code that they somehow hacked in there. Maybe they hacked into Angry Birds software stack. Maybe they wrote a little bug. If I've got this piece of software on my phone, it therefore gives these government agencies access to my phone. How would it work?
Well, that is a question that goes beyond my realm of expertise. And I was even going to throw it over to you because I know your background in this stuff. But my understanding is that it isn't necessarily a backdoor or a hack. It's the fact that in these licensing agreements, when we say yes to that contract, we say yes to that company sharing our data with third-party organizations. Who cares who that is? If somebody comes to my door with a check and I'm, an app company, and they say, well, we would love, the data of your users, here's X amount of dollars. If that's what it sells for, why am I saying no to you? Because you're the NSA as opposed to a traditional advertiser. So I think most of the time that's how it works, although I'll give you some examples later of when it's been more nefarious.
Yeah, and I know that these agencies can serve companies with warrants, and in the warrants, these requests for data, they're not allowed to talk about whether they've been served with one or not. So they could essentially say, hey, give us access to your customer data, and also you can never tell your customers that we asked for that. There's a great scene in a conference where this developer of an operating system called Linux is asked, is there an NSA backdoor in Linux? Have they ever approached you? And he just goes, next question. It's kind of scary. I'm here with Dr. Lee Kuhnle, talking the ways that governments and politicians can steal your data. When we come back, more examples that might surprise you.
Part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat, or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
Your nightly dose of unfiltered opinions and unexpected conversations. Unexpected Conversations. The last show with David Cooper.
It is Conspiracy Corner, and governments may have a folder, a digital one, on you. We're talking how that can happen and what the implications of that are on Conspiracy Corner. I already said the name of this segment twice. Welcome to Conspiracy Corner, Dr. Lee Kuhnle, political science professor, host of the Uncover Up podcast. It is Conspiracy Corner.
Is this Conspiracy Corner? Is that what I've shown up for? Yeah, okay.
It might be. The second time I said it, I didn't realize I was an idiot, and then I tried to cover it up by saying it too many times.
No, I think that this is how you plug the show. I mean, I'm learning a lot.
The NSA, the FBI, they have folders on so many people that they're tracking that get filled with data. And there are disclosures, whether they were leaked or Freedom of Information Act requests, where we kind of know that this is going on. We may not know what is happening today, but we have this delayed kind of like, well, okay, they were doing this 10 years ago. Who knows what they're doing now? We were going through some examples, Lee.
Exactly. And just methodologically, I really find looking into the past so helpful, because I find that myself, I'm always confused with what's going on in the news. It really takes some time in order to get the real information to know what's happening today. So in 10 years, I'll circle back to what's happening in 2025. And then you're right. The only other way to do it is to look into the past. And what I've been trying to think about, because of course I'm also teaching students who imagine that a lot of their lives is lived outside of politics or the influence of politics, and precisely in the things like their phone games or even their online games. These are places we all retreat to when we're trying to take a break from the news cycle, when we're trying to not precisely be involved in politics. And what I find so interesting is that's where they get you. And so here's another example. The earlier one was about how, Angry Birds was being used essentially to just harvest data. Here's one where you actually have agents undercover in digital gaming communities. So again, this comes mostly from Snowden files, and we've had GCHQ and other organizations look into it. And apparently with Xbox, for example, there were FBI and CIA agents running operations inside of World of Warcraft, Second Life, these kinds of digital online games. They were trying to find targets that they could use as informers. They were building profiles of people. They were tracking various types of traffic. Apparently, other foreign actors were using these spaces in order to organize political activity that was, dangerous and that they didn't want other people looking at.
Were people really going on Second Life and organizing, subversive political stuff, or was that just a rumor and gave the government an excuse to spy everyone who was on the game?
So, I'm just going by the reports as I see them, but apparently, so this is one of the few actual successes that they've been able to point to with this, but there was a credit card scheme. It was one of these like stolen credit card numbers, and you'd find that on the dark web if you knew where to look. Their operation got shut down, so they went over into Second Life, and that's where they were trading stolen credit card information. Apparently, Iranian nuclear scientists were communicating on, in these game rooms as well. Al-Qaeda has been there, Hezbollah, Hamas. There are foreign actors that are using these spaces. And so CIA, NSA, FBI is like, well, we got to get in there as well. And so they're there undercover trying to figure out who is who and potentially trying to find informers, turn people, and then, of course, use all the data that they can get as well.
Have you ever heard of room 641A?
No.
It is. So there's this guy who was sent to repair some of the telecommunications infrastructure in a building in San Francisco. It was fiber optic internet lines that were like major switches for the internet, if you will. Most of the internet traffic in and around the San Francisco Bay Area, back and forth, would go through this room on fiber optic lines. And he noticed there was a room where there was what are called beam splitters, which is a way to sort of observe what's going on the fiber optic line, sort of a read-only feed. You can kind of tap so basically a digital wiretap. And he realized this room was being run by the NSA, and he leaked it. And, this is one way the government was getting a copy of all internet traffic through Freedom of Information Acts and class action lawsuits by the Electronic Frontier Foundation or the EFF. They found out more information, and in fact, they're now called black rooms, and it's suspected that every major switch in the US may have one of these from the knowledge that this one exists. And it's just another way in which the government can collect your data. They're basically just getting a copy of all your communications. If it's encrypted, maybe they have a way to unencrypt it. If they have a big enough computer, maybe there's backdoors in the encryption algorithms, who knows? But this is one way that it happens. And if it wasn't for this technician sent in to kind of do some repairs in this office, we would never know about these.
That is so cool. I was taking furious notes as you were writing. This is totally going to come up in an upcoming Uncover Up podcast episode. Room 641A. I can't wait.
I look forward to being a guest on it. I'm kidding.
No, totally. That's it. You've dug your own grave. You're coming on the show.
But yeah, this technician was sent in there to just do some repairs, and he's like realizes what this room is.
Yeah.
And he leaked it. I don't think they sent him to jail or anything because it's not like it was even well known or he was a government employee or anything.
And that's generally just a really insightful description of how we actually discover a lot of conspiracies that turned out to be true, is just somebody accidentally finds something that was not very well hidden, but people weren't really paying attention to. And there it is, as opposed to these dark machinations. It's just like, oh, we misfiled something stupid. And then, it was discovered later. So this sounds, just by the way you described it, it sounds very plausible. I can't wait to look into it.
It's a cool story, and the fact that it's titled Room 641A, it just sounds so ominous. It sounds like it's just a little closet next to these major computers that control the internet. Don't look in there, even though like a copy of all the data running through the data center gets sent to this, ominous room that happens to be run by the NSA. It's curious and weird and worth doing a little extra research in, but it is just one way in which a government can collect your data by copying everything you do on your phone or your computer, or all the data running through the internet.
Exactly. Well, and I was going to give you a bunch more examples.
Hit me with one. I apologize. I derailed.
No, I love it. I just remind everybody, because everybody knows that the Cambridge Analytica Facebook example where there were Facebook surveys that people would fill out. These were very innocuous, sort of like, are you an introvert or extrovert? Do you like sunshine or darkness? And in doing that survey, you again clicked one of these agreements where you're like, yeah, sure, I agree to share my data with third party. But in there was also that you would share all your friends' data. So all your friend connections on Facebook, which back in 2014 was the largest social networking platform out there. 250,000 people took the survey. 80 million Americans' data was harvested. And that was then utilized during the 2016 presidential election for like micro-targeting ads that didn't look like ads through this shadowy organization called Cambridge Analytica, which is super interesting to look up. But, I can see that I don't have enough time. So I just leave it at that. And, if anybody wants to know more, there's a lot of info out there.
I mean, if you want to target people with political ads that either aren't true or are true but are kind of used to help bias them or force them more in a political direction, knowing what their political views are based on their friends and what they posted on social media is very helpful.
Exactly.
And we've known that it happened in the 2016.
No, this went all the way back to 2014. Again, I like to live in the past so that I could really, verify what I've done. We have a lot of indications that it happened in 2020 and in 2024 as well, but we just don't have the same kind of proof that I like to work with.
Lee, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Lee Kuhnle, check out his podcast, The Uncover Up. After the break, is your work life and your home life compartmentalized? Maybe it shouldn't be, because how you handle things at home could boost your performance on the job. Details up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
The NBA playoffs are here, and I'm getting my bets in on FanDuel. Talk to me, Chuck GPT. What do you know?
All sorts of interesting stuff, even Charles Barkley's greatest fear.
Hey, nobody needs to know that.
New customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
21 plus and present in Virginia. Must be first online real money wager. $5 deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The human algorithm, where emotional inputs create unexpected outputs. The last show with David Cooper.
Can reorganizing your home life make you sharper at work? A new study says yeah, and then it shows that people who rethink their chores, their childcare, and routines at home become more adaptable and creative at work. I'm here with someone who worked on that study. His name is Dr. Yasin Rofcanin. He's an organizational psychology professor at the University of Bath School of Management. Yasin, thanks for talking to me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me here, David.
Tell me about this concept of strategic renewal in the concept of home life, and what does it mean for my workplace life?
So for a very long time in my research with my co-authors, we were interested in the idea of how one can achieve a great balance between work and life and between work and leisure. And one idea that struck me for a very long time was about proactivity and this proactive approach that you can bring in your home life, and how by renewing and reorganizing your activities at home, you can feel freshened up, happy and positive at home, with the idea of all of those states of feelings, personal resources that find the same replication and implication in the work life. So basically, strategic renewal is the idea of revamping yourself, your resources, and your activities, your chores at home in a proactive way, which can then be a source of energy, a source of positive affectivity creation for you. Then you take those on with you and implement those in the work life. And that's a concept we call spillover. That is, things either negative or positive while you're engaging with your partner, communication, sharing, or engaging in home-related activities. How do those actually then transfer, spill over, and have an effect in your work life? So that's the whole basic idea of this paper. And that paper actually, and broadly, my research talks about the practical and proactive initiatives and ways through which one can achieve a good balance. I don't want to sound too positivist about this, but a good balance is a better word rather than enrichment or conflict. Balance, I think, is the key word here.
So how can I restructure my home life, my chores, whatever, the way you're speaking? For example, right now, sometimes there's this Cold War standoff between my girlfriend and I. I'm the USSR, she's the United States, and neither of us are agreeing to do the dishes. You know what I'm saying? How can we restructure our home life in a way that might have positive effect at work? Some examples.
I think the core idea of this construct comes from constructive sharing and communication with the partner. Again, I think I don't want to sound too structured or too imposing on that, but having a very bordered and organized manner of communication, like saying, for instance, that it's my turn now to take the dogs out and I'm going to take care of the home in this time period, and for the rest, you're going to be responsible from those. Basically, I think it's the idea of implementing principles of initiative taking and proactivity. So the term comes from proactivity, and just being a bit forward-looking and showing initiative and taking on more responsibility as it fits you.
All right, I'm going to do the dishes after this interview. Side note. So if I do these things and I have this good communication, structured routine around chores, how can this spill over into my work life?
It can, because there are two mechanisms means through which I think it will generate positive impact. The first one is actually then you stay in the moment. By doing that, actually, you feel refreshed as well. Many research on relaxation and switching off actually emphasize many of the home chores and activities where you're engaged actively. And one of those dimensions is performance in family domain. It shows that even if there's physical tiredness and that you feel exhausted after washing the dishes or just doing the yawning in the garden, you actually feel quite focused in the moment and that you are in the flow. And that sense of flow accompanied with a sense of achievement. So there's a bit of sense of achievement there as well. Combination of sense of achievement and being in the moment actually generate positivity, positive moods, engagement, and energy for the next day. So our research actually talks about the day effects. What happens, for instance, when you are having a conversation with your girlfriend on dishwashing and which movie to watch on in Netflix will have an impact for the next day, engagement and positive activity as well. So it's all actually about sharing, about proactively putting things in order, and then doing those proactively and doing those actually even, with your focus and with your attention.
You looked at dual income couples with kids. Is this a demographic critical to understanding work-life balance today?
I think it has its own limitation as well. So looking at the heterosexual couples, full-time employed, and actually our sample came from the United States. So from the very beginning, we can say that it's a nice sample, but it's also a limitation because the composition of our sample is very privileged. But then I think to be able to generalize, we have to draw from representative samples. And we had to look at couples who have different roles and responsibilities and who are full-time employed, therefore, who would have different, engagement and professional activities going on in their own separate lives. And then we look at the dynamics of sharing and communication and mutual crossover between partners in a very, again, dynamic way.
I'm hearing that creating a chore wheel or maybe a shared family Google Calendar to manage the home, this might be an act of professional development, so much so that maybe I should list it on my resume.
Well, actually, for instance, to give an example, I travel a lot and my partner and our schedules hardly coincide and we are hardly aware of each other's travel and flight schedules. So I actively create and put that on the refrigerator, and then things that sometimes we don't do anything over the weekend because weekdays are already full and we do lots of theaters and going out, etc. Even having a null weekend without doing anything is an activity itself, and just, putting this onto a calendar or in a structured Word format. The idea here is that the other person, or only yourself, it could be you and your cat. It doesn't have to be a person, but, depends on how you define your family. It's just being proactive about it and revisioning and then putting borders on the impact and types and people involved in those activities, because the idea here is that it generates a sense of accomplishment, a sense of success. You feel that you're capable of not only undertaking those chores at home, but then you're also capable of carrying out those activities in your work domain as well. So it's this nice bridge between those two domains that connect both of you. But what I think I would like to emphasize is creativity. And that creativity doesn't have to be something out of something supernova or something out of this world. But support for creativity should be there within your family, but also within your work culture. So being, coming up with ideas, being innovative and supporting creativity or engaging in creative activities, this cannot be achieved if your aura of family, your partner, or the team climate at your work are not supportive of this type of activities. So I think the underlying gist here is that both within your family and within your work domain, there has to be somebody that's supporting this creative cycle.
Is there one tip, one small change that you could recommend for couples who are both working to do at home that might improve their work life? Some innovative fix or something like that?
I think one innovative tip I would have here is to decide on the border strategies. So I call this border management between leisure, family, and work. Some people, including me, are totally okay work interfering my family life. The first step, I think, for you, for your partner, girlfriend, or boyfriends, etc., is to decide on the extent to which I would like them to be mingled and integrated with each other. Therefore, I think deciding on this followed up by proactive and future-oriented consultation and communication with your partner would be a great step.
Dr. Yasin Rofcanin is an organizational psychology professor at the University of Bath School of Management. Yasin, thank you for talking to me today. I've enjoyed the chat.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this little chat as well. I hope I'm helpful and findings are useful for our general audience.
I think they were. Thanks again. Coming up after the break, the idea of a 4-year degree seems great in theory, but for most students, that's more a myth than a reality. We'll talk to a researcher who crunched the numbers on how long students really spend on a 4-year degree and discuss how we might reframe things and not just use making fun of language like victory lap, which I'm guilty of because I took one, a long one. So how best to support students who take a little longer in post-secondary school, that we'll discuss in a few moments.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Oh, it's such a clutch pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom, too. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
The GOAT!
Save up to 50% with minimum purchase at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Smart, sharp, and slightly unhinged. Late Night's Fresh Perspective. The Last Show with David Cooper.
We call it a 4-year degree, but for most students, that's more a myth than a reality. Today, we'll speak to someone who crunched the numbers on how long students spend in university and college and find out what that number is and how we can start changing our thinking around it. Her name is Jenny Nagaoka. She's a deputy director of the University of Chicago Consortium on School Research.
It's a mouthful.
Jenny, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Let's start the big myth buster here because I am very good at undergraduate, better than most people because I spent more years at it than most people. I kid, of course. The idea of a 4-year degree, though, it's kind of a fantasy. It doesn't always work out that way for some students, doesn't it?
No, it really doesn't. I mean, it's like we call them 4-year colleges, but that's actually not the experience of a lot of students. I mean, there was actually a national survey a few years ago, which sort of asked students as they were starting college at a 4-year college. And they asked them, which I'm sure they all thought this was like a trick question, like, how long do you think it's going to take you to complete a 4-year degree? And not surprisingly, 9 out of 10 said 4 years. But unfortunately, nationally, fewer than half of students are completing a 4-year degree in 4 years.
Wow.
Fortunately, like another 17% do finish within 6 years. And in Chicago, where we went in depth in crunching the numbers are actually even lower, which is not surprising given these are students who are facing a lot more challenges with going to college and completing. And there, it's about 30% are completing in 4 years, and then it goes up quite a bit to over half finishing in 6 years. So, students do finish, but it's not 4 years.
And you looked at students not just like today or the last year, across a whole decade. What surprised you most about how long it actually takes?
I mean, the interesting thing is that this like difference between 4 years and 6 years is a gap that actually exists across all kinds of students in Chicago. Their actual graduation rates differ, not surprisingly, but like this is true of students with really low GPAs and ACT scores. This is true of students with really high GPAs, close to 4.0, or really high ACT scores. It's true across almost all colleges. It was true across all high schools. And this in the Chicago public schools, we actually have some high schools which are rated as, the top in the nation. And nonetheless, there's a difference in the percentage of students who are finishing in 4 years versus 6 years. So I think it's kind of did not expect that. I thought, students who are really good at school will finish in 4 years, right? And that's just not the case.
And it's not just because students are quote unquote bad or have bad academic preparedness. There can be like a variety of reasons for this. Maybe somebody wants to spend the year like working, or maybe like some year abroad, or maybe they change their major and they don't have the required credits to make it in 5 years. Of course, there's students like me who have a rough first year. So maybe I just did first year twice when you really think about it. But yeah, there's so many different reasons. What are some that you've observed that are more common than people might think?
I mean, I think it's I kind of like bin them into 2 big categories in some ways. Some are things that are a little bit more under a student's control, or it's their individual circumstances. So, sometimes, students struggle academically, or they get to college and there's a lot more freedom and they aren't quite as engaged in classes as maybe they should be in order to move along. But, especially in places like the students coming from Chicago, there's a lot more challenges around, finances, things that are happening with their families, health reasons. But, I think those are all very, very real. And I think there are things that also colleges can be supporting them so these things don't become as big of stumbling blocks, because, students should not be having to face all these challenges alone. But, I think one of the other big takeaways we want, particularly higher ed, to think about here, is the fact that they don't always make it easy, right? I mean, you brought up like students change their major or transfer to another college. There's some majors where it's actually really hard to finish in 4 years. They don't necessarily have strong enough advising, so students are not taking the appropriate courses to finish on time. There's a lot of stuff that colleges are doing that make it less likely for students to complete in 4 years. And, on a sort of, maybe, they're paying tuition, so does it matter as much to them? But I think ultimately colleges do want their students to graduate. So it'd be really helpful for them to be doing a lot more to make it easier for them to graduate, because we do want more students to be having college degrees.
Sure. We kind of label it as a victory lap. Like I even jokingly refer to my time spent a little bit extra as this joke. But because it happens so much across the board, like it's even built into our language, especially in the US, where it's like junior, freshman, senior, sophomore. As a foreigner, I could never figure out which one is first, second, third, and fourth year. Junior seems like it should be the first, right? But it's
yeah, kind of, yeah.
But like, what are you when you're in your fifth year? It's built into the language, and there's a lot of jokes around it. Should we be reframing this?
I mean, I think we should. I think part of also what we want to be doing with this is to kind of take some of the stigma away from it. I think it's sort of both like, if you can finish in 4 years, you should, because it's expensive. College is very, very expensive, which is one of the other big challenges the world is facing right now. But also, colleges can do more to help students complete. But we also, I think there is kind of a stigma, or it's kind of like, hey, I started with, you start college, I'm the class of 2029. And then suddenly all my friends who I started school with, I'm no longer the class of 2029. I'm the class of, 2030, 2031, something like that.
Yeah, that's another way it's built into the language. You're the class of, quote, 4 years from your enrollment. And I don't know, it doesn't map to the reality of things.
It really doesn't. And I think, it's also, I feel like, colleges, they call themselves four-year institutions. They tell students that they assign a class when you start. And I think they also just need to hold up their side of the bargain and, making sure that the structures are in place so they're actually students are completing college, that if you change majors, it's not that as big of a catastrophe as it can be. And there's also a lot of things where scholarships and financial aid quite often are set up to be geared for 4 years as well. So people, when they're saving money, are planning for 4 years. I think it's also a really big problem, especially when, in this day and age when tuition has become so incredibly expensive.
I wonder if we rebranded things to 4 to 6 year plans with electives, detours, breaks, time off for medical or family reasons, financial challenges, and lots of ramen. If we labeled it as that, do you think we'd set up more people for success?
I think some of it is just, just making it clearer that even though we all think, if you tell us that we're going to be going to a 4-year college and it's a 4-year degree, that it takes 4 years, know that sometimes it doesn't. And you can plan ahead and know that it's not always clear. You just kind of start college, you start taking classes and don't realize always the consequences, because you're not being given the right kind of advice about what to take. And I just worry about, especially, it's true for everybody, but particularly students who are coming from backgrounds where just paying for college to begin with is a struggle, that even one term is really expensive. It also means you're taking longer to start working, which, in some ways, I guess, that's sometimes it's kind of seen like, you get a chance to explore yourself more in college, but it also means, especially if your family doesn't have a lot of money, that it's another several months, year, however long, that you're not actually contributing and sustaining yourself too.
Jenny, thank you so much for the chat. It was a great one.
Great. Thanks so much. Good talking.
Jenny Nagaoka is the Deputy Director of the University of Chicago's Consortium on School Research and a Senior Advisor for the To&Through Project. That's the show. Thanks for tuning in. Do check out our podcast. More details at www.lastshow.pizza. That's lastshow.pizza, not .com. Do not check out our podcast, if that made sense. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show. We'll be back tomorrow night. This time. Well, before this time. At this time tomorrow, the show will end.